TellyCast.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to the final TellyCast of 2023. My guest this week is an old friend of TellyCast, Evan Shapiro. Welcome back to TellyCast, Evan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
You've had some health challenges. We're hoping that you're okay, right? And you're fit and healthy for 2024.
I am. I feel as good as I have, certainly since the middle of this year, and probably even longer back than that. So I'm feeling good, eating solid foods, which if you follow my story, it means something. If you don't follow my story, good for you. But feeling great and really looking forward to traveling. Vegas in January, London in January, Austin in March, and then a bunch of more travel next year. So yeah, feeling great. Thank you.
Well, it was great to see you on European shores last year, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Great to hear that you're fitting well.
Thanks.
So this week, we're just going to spend some time for our last show of 2023, just reviewing what just happened. What the hell just happened in the content industry in 23? Because it was a kind of a bin fire for many in the industry, particularly if you're a producer, but, lots of talk at all of our industry gatherings and Zoom meetings and what have you about people worried about their jobs. There's been a whole load of downsizing in the industry. Let's look ahead as well to 24 and look for some bright spots. And as we try to survive till 25, which is a term that I'm starting to hear more and more within the content industry. So let's just kick off, first of all, with an overview of the media universe then and your famous maps. Our actual physical universe is expanding, but what about the media universe in 2023? What does it look like now compared to maybe what it looked like a year or so ago?
Well, there's no question that the media universe contracted in 2023 in many different ways. And contracted, kind of a loose term for basically cuts. Every major company made dramatic cuts. Everything from Amazon to Google down to Spotify and Netflix across the media ecosystem. More jobs lost in tech and in media than I think at any point since they started measuring, if you add all of the tech and media jobs together. In particular, in media, over 20,000 jobs lost so far in 2023, and the year's not up. Spotify just let go 1,500 employees last week. And so, and everybody's business plan, I think pretty much across the whole universe in 2023 was reduce costs in order to improve profits. That was Zuckerberg's promise, but that was also Zaslav's promise, and that was Iger's promise. And that's basically what they did all year long. And so there was this contraction of enterprise size across the universe, mostly though, and I think this is a big trend in comparison to where they were during the pandemic. And so I think that what's really crucial when you want to know what just happened is to look at when the current era of media started. And that was in 2019. When Disney went direct to consumer chasing Netflix, and everyone chased Disney into the space, and none of them truly considered what was going to happen to their business model when they did that, when they went from wholesale to churn-based retail offering.
That was a huge change for these businesses who were up to that point, as you say, business to business company.
Wholesale, crucially, the glory days of television, the golden age of television that included Mad Men and Walking Dead and things not on AMC, and The Sopranos and a lot of these other things, was supported by the traditional pay TV bundle, which is nested inside a triple play of services that was enormously profitable on the whole, though video was not very profitable by itself. If video had to survive as a direct retail thing, it would have been Netflix at the time, which was losing money and selling cable for $8 a month, which is not a realistic business model, right? If you go back to the first days of streaming Netflix. In 2019, Disney jumped in and went from a wholesale cable product direct to consumer without thinking it was going to speed up the acceleration of the death of the ecosystem, and that they could replace the value where they were headed. And that's really where the big mistake is made, is because, sure, replace the value. It's a break-even business. It's a break-even business. Distributing video content for the last 30 years has been a break-even business. The profit comes from the other things you stuff through that pipe. Amazon's television profit comes from free delivery. So we need to replace. You need to replace the entire shell in which the TV bundle was housed. The big walnut shell called broadband, pure profit to a certain extent at one point, and telephone, which was absolutely pure profit, 100% pure profit, because it didn't even take up bandwidth. That all disintegrated, and now it's being replaced. Now it's being replaced by the bundle of services called Amazon Prime, which include home delivery for free, music, reading, which is very important for a lot of constituencies, gaming, a massive gaming enterprise, and crucially, the connection between ad dollars and purchases. On Black Friday, they combined that all into one product called Thursday Night Football on Black Friday, when you could watch the most popular sport in America and buy products in the commercials. And that was a game changer for the ecosystem. That's what happened in 2023. And in 2023, Apple signed Messi and changed talent deals in sport and otherwise. In 2023, as they were contracting, the major studios decided to contract even further and have a strike, 2 strikes. In fact, that was the studio's choice. They could have avoided it because they ultimately wind up giving everything almost that they were being asked for in both strikes. The whole thing was a money-saving enterprise. And it shows you exactly kind of the stage that the marketplace is at. The big tech Death Stars are investing in what works in video and surrounding it with a whole other suite of services. Amazon, we know what they are. Apple, it's devices and gaming and music and cloud and fitness and news. Google has music and gaming. Number 1 in gaming video, number 2 in music when you look at it worldwide. Fastest growing MVPD in America, the fastest growing connected television operating system on the planet. So they're surrounding consumers with a different suite of services. And then in traditional media, you have people who ran a strike to save money, and their entire business plan to grow is by cutting, which when you look at what happened in 2023, the revenues have stopped growing and they're still cutting. I don't think that portends for anything other than sales in 2024, but you asked what happened in 2023. That's my recap.
Right.
One last thing, what happened in 2023. Advertising. All of advertising had already changed. Television advertising changed for good in 2023. And that was when money came out of the upfront and moved into scatter, moved away from brand and into performance. More of it moved off of traditional television and onto CTV. YouTube became a majority CTV platform. And that Amazon thing happened, and Apple signed Messi, and we continue to see what's happening on the connected television. When connected television becomes an extension of digital media, which it's already doing, YouTube is the number 1 channel on connected televisions worldwide. And the type of performance marketing return on ad spend that you see in digital media is going to invade the television world. So television advertising is going to be majority other than traditional starting next year. And next year's NewFront and Upfront are going to combine into making measurement very different. 24 months from now, measurement will be very different from what it is today. And that started with the NewFront and Upfront of 2023.
And that's about time, right? Because it's always these huge sums changing hands, and the measurement conversation has been going on for years, right? It's the old paradigm. Half of my marketing is working. I just don't know which half, right? That's
John Wanamaker, yes.
Yeah.
And that was said almost a century ago. And that's how outdated that thinking is. And there's a bunch of people in the advertising economy who think programmatic is tech. And that's naive and adorable. In reality, we're moving to an era where my first party data should drive my marketing. So if I'm Nike or I'm Procter & Gamble, I have an enormous amount of data on my consumers. First party data they've given me. I should be able to create a marketing campaign on any platform on the face of the earth, and crucially across all platforms on the face of the earth, using that data as the media plan. These are my buyers, not my most likely buyers. These are my buyers.
Yeah.
Now let's create a very trackable but completely private universe of media where I talk to my consumers until they do exactly what I want them to do, whether that's adore the brand more or buy my shit. But that's the era we're about to go into. There's not going to be a replacement, necessarily a single replacement currency for Nielsen. There will be several currencies that replace Nielsen. iSpot, VideoAmp, tons of others, right? But what's crucial is you understand what the measurement currency is going to be, and that's going to be business outcomes. Whether that's I want them to love my brand more, but I need to be able to demonstrate that through certain actions, or I want them to put this fucking thing in their cart. It's all going to begin with my most passionate community, and then I'm going to build my plan on that. Companies who can't take that type of advertising will fail. That's Disney. That's Paramount. That's Fox. That's Comcast. I mean, they kind of can do it, but not the way Google. 59% of America's advertising, not digital advertising, advertising, goes to 3 companies: Meta, Google, and Amazon. That's not going to get less true in 2024. It's going to get more true in 2024. Except maybe you might see Microsoft and Apple join that triopoly that's currently there. It's going to take them a long time. Just to put that in perspective, TikTok does about 6 or 7%. The new era that we're in, that started in 2019, I call the user-centric era. I started that before and I didn't get to it. We ceded control to them when Disney decided to go direct to consumer and live with churn.
Yeah.
Good luck. I've been there. Sucks.
Yeah.
It's like running the post office. In the user-centric era, yes, accountability is going to be key. But the data, the community's data that you have is yours to control. Part of the fault with half my marketing money is being wasted, I only wish I knew which half, is that the speaker doesn't take accountability for their own actions. Well, then why are you buying that media? Yeah. Right? I can be smarter. I have first party data. I can use it, but I have to go to places, data rooms. I have to go through all the privacy hoops, jump through all the privacy hoops that are absolutely necessary. But if I do, every experience that one of my customers has will be better for them because it will be more tailored to them. And I will have a much deeper and higher profit per relationship than I have today. I don't necessarily think it's accountability, except it is to ourselves and the way we manage the data as currency.
Yeah. And you have the permission of the consumer to market to them as well, essentially.
That's, I think, really key. That's zero party data, not first party data. So I work with Publishers Clearinghouse. We do these surveys. We just dropped a huge gaming study this week. A couple weeks ago, we dropped the largest study on data privacy in America ever, with a professor from Syracuse and a professor from NYU and myself. And we did these the gaming survey is 68,000 respondents. And they're able to get that panel so fast and so large because they already have permission to market to these 15 million consumers who have given them a ton of information on themselves as part of a value exchange between the community and the brand. That's where we're headed. Zero party permission marketing data is going to be incredibly valuable.
Well, I think all businesses need to think about that, don't they? In terms of, if you're getting an email open rate of whatever the industry average, I know it's tiny. It's something stupid like,
it's like less than a tenth of, it is
5% or something, maybe even than that, right?
I don't think it's that much. Yeah. I think 2 to 3% is probably the average.
Yeah.
And then, and that goes down over time, right? The other thing is like, what are you doing with that data now that you have the yeses and nos is all valuable data for you? It can make everything else you do that much smarter and that much more efficient. To put this back to television, HBO Max can't compete with Instagram on video ads. They can't. And that's not HBO Max's fault. That's traditional media's fault. That's actually the fault of the CTV community itself right now, because there is no universal source of truth from a data standpoint, because the various constituents are holding their data in silos and hoarding it for themselves. Certainly Amazon, Google, and Meta have no incentive to share their data or access to their black box machine learning performance marketing arsenal, because it just makes them so much money. So we have to be responsible for managing our own campaigns by starting with the constituencies that we already have.
Well, talking about more traditional, I'll say more traditional, sort of maybe a different way of distribution that we've seen this year has been fast, and there's been I think probably a bit of a overblown kind of hullabaloo around fast. Yes, it's great. Lots of distribution companies have launched all these fast channels on all these platforms all around the world, but discoverability, are they really making money on this? Again, these are distribution companies going direct to consumer. I get the feeling that there's lots of channels being launched and then they just left and just relying on people to discover them, right? Out of the hundreds and thousands that there are out there. Until Fast starts to commission original content and become a proper kind of network of its own right, it's just a new sort of shelf for content to sit on. It just means that consumers can get to it. Is that how you see it?
I think 2023. So 2 years ago, I wrote this piece that predicted the televisioning of fast, and what's happened in the last 2 years is that's what's happened. So you now have a collection of channels out there that they're not just launching stuff anymore. In fact, if anything, there's a culling happening. There are new things launching, but they're very different from the things that are leaving. And what you have now in fast are a couple of conglomerates: Amazon, Samsung, Paramount, Fox, and Roku, really controlling the majority of the voice, especially in the United States. Roku is obviously enormous, but globally speaking, those are the players that are controlling most of the fast ecosystem. They are commissioning originals, by the way. Roku Channel makes a tremendous amount of original content. A lot of it is derivative of IP that they already have in great volume. So Great British Baking, they've done exclusives there. But they made a movie with Harry Potter and Weird Al Yankovic, Daniel Radcliffe and Weird Al. And they've done a ton of other stuff as well. Freevee just got an Emmy nomination for Best Comedy for a really great show called Jury Duty. So there are originals being produced there. And the big players are going to do very well. Pluto is doing very well. Tubi is doing very well. They'll really, two of the bright spots at those larger at Fox. Tubi is the only bright spot. Paramount, there's other things going on, but Pluto is one of the brightest spots. They're doing quite well. Freevees, I imagine, doing well, but their criteria is different because they're part of Amazon, right? So a much larger ecosystem there. So you have those folks. And then you have Disney and Disco Brothers and the rest, right? And they're in the process of basically building channels by licensing content to these other players to a certain extent. It's really just additional money on sunk costs. So it is found money for them. And then you have the amateurs who are being kind of shoved out of the ecosystem now in fast, let's be honest. And then you have these mid-level players like Vivo. And by mid-level, I mean by size of company, not by size of presence on platform. Vivo is a monster on fast. Tastemade is a monster on fast. Yeah. Crackle is a monster on fast. Gusto is a monster on fast. So you've got these collections of channels. Pocket Watch, which is kids. World Poker Tour does incredibly well on fast. And then you've got single IP channels like Bob Ross and things like that. So there is a collection of kind of rerundom that is happening there and catch-updom that's there. But also don't sleep on the fact that there are a number of really good, who they used to be pure YouTube folk, who are now making equal money in fast as they were making on YouTube, as they are in YouTube. And that's saying a lot because they're making a lot of money on YouTube.
Yeah.
Let me veer into a kind of side point on that, which is if you're programming for this screen and your entire plan is fast, you are fucked. Note, the people I said were going to make money do a lot of other things beyond fast. But crucially, for the Tastemades and this big fast but small company success stories, they treat their YouTube presence and their fast presence as part of a larger continuum, and they're programming both on a regular basis, and they're making real money in both places. For many people, YouTube is going to be the larger revenue driver than fast. I'm not saying don't do fast, but don't sleep on YouTube. YouTube is the largest channel on television, but it's with other people's content. Other than NFL Sunday Ticket, they don't really own all that much. It's all driven by publishers. So don't look at either fast or YouTube as a standalone product. Look at them as a holistic, unified, connected television strategy, which should also include pay TV, and virtual pay TV and AVOD and TVOD and the rest of the continuum.
And this plays into what you talked about at a MIPCOM. It was actually MIP TV, I think, when you talked about the yes and approach. It's all about IP and actually looking at all the different branches, all the different opportunities out there to make money through your IP, as opposed to just going the one traditional route. You made a plea to the industry to think about that.
So I started that there with yes and, right? And then at MIPCOM at the FAST Summit, I talked about a unified CTV strategy, which is yes and, yes and, yes and, yes and, yes and. FAST and YouTube channels, by the way, and pay TV and AVOD and SVAD, SVOD with ads. You should have a holistic, CTV strategy, which ultimately should also include games to a certain extent. And that's true for all video. There's I think a move to bifurcate the video experience into vertical and mobile, short form, and horizontal premium on no matter what device you're watching it. If you're watching it in 16:9, it's a premium experience. If you're watching it in 9:16, it's social video, and it's usually short form. Even TikTok is getting into horizontal long form content, 15 minutes or more perhaps. You have to have a universal video strategy, understand what you're using each experience for, and what's the monetization strategy around each one. But crucially, how do you maintain the relationship with your end user across all of those experiences?
Yeah. And guess what? This year has seen the emergence of AI, and that's just at the right time for you to be able to, approach all of those different platforms and ways to cut your content and present your content at the click of the button, right?
Yeah, crucially, I think that's a really good point, which is I think, Gen AI is going to steal all our jobs, or it can version all of your content for all of these places appropriately with your management, because people who write AI are going to get rich. People who know how to manage AI are actually going to do quite well too, because it's only as good as the information you're feeding it at the end of the day.
Yeah. And
so the more information and the more articulate and more clear the information is that you're feeding your monster, the more accurate the monster is when it carves out a hedge for you. Anyway, I think in particular, reversioning video and promos and schedules to optimize based on information that's coming in real time. We're already doing that with ads, right? We should be able to do that with content as well.
Let's look at subscription and SVODs then. So in particular, Netflix. Netflix has had a bit of a mixed year. I mean, they announced that they'd bolstered their numbers through cutting down on password sharing and various other sort of approaches, obviously slightly less commissioning as well. How would you think the year has panned out for Netflix?
I mean, they've had a very good year from I anticipated that they would lose far more customers through the password sharing than they have. You have to keep an eye on that, but their churn is by far lower than everybody else's. Antenna just put out a study on churn over the last year, and theirs is, way below. The industry average is around 6%. Theirs is at like 1.5, right. 1.8%.
That purely can't be down to password sharing. Is that good? What about the advertising opportunities that they?
No, that's the thing is that's the ironic thing is that's almost all purely paid users. I would say probably not over 95% of that is purely paid users, and I think it's actually a higher percentage than that. If I had to be, I mean, do you know anybody who's used Netflix with ads?
Nope.
Right. So no one is. And they've had an interesting year storytelling around that because they keep telling people it's 5 million, now 15 million monthly active users, which I don't think most of the universe that covers streaming understands what that is.
Yeah.
Monthly active users is not subscribers.
Yeah.
Crucially. And if you think about monthly active users, I could probably spin up a website with 15 million monthly active users. Right. And crucially, I wouldn't be able to get into, through the lobby of any ad agency on earth with 15 million monthly active users.
Yeah.
So, Hulu, conversely, has around 48 million total subscribers. 60% of those are ad supported. 60%, which is why Hulu has one of the highest average revenue per user metrics in the industry. Granted, they have, a fraction of the total subscribers of Netflix, but Netflix has a very low, I would say lower on a subscriber base of 230 million subscribers. I think they have less than 5 million total ad tier subscribers at any moment. And it may have a higher churn. It may have a lower churn. They're not breaking it out. Right. And they changed over their entire executive team who runs ad sales there to an executive who's never worked in advertising before. So they had a really good year from a subscriber standpoint. From a cash flow standpoint, they're doing quite well. But from a growth standpoint, we'll see. Where is new growth going to come from long term? So let's say churn stays at a historic low that it is right now. Even then, the growth is going to slow as to new subscribers they can add. Now, if they can swap them for ad tier subscribers, that average revenue per user is going to go up. That's why the Hulu model. But they have to build a real ad tier product. And I don't see that happening in the next 24 months. And so at that point, you have to wonder what's next for them.
Yeah.
That brings us to the bundling idea that we discussed before, which is in my mind, they've dabbled in gaming, they've dabbled in audio. Netflix right now could really get into the ad business if they bought Spotify. And they could buy Spotify. And crucially, Spotify's ad business needs a shot in the arm as well. Also, those two combined products would be a really interesting way to take on Apple and Amazon and Google. I think there are new ways to think about these businesses that I think you're going to start to see in the year ahead. 2024, I think, will be the year of interesting partnerships to kind of emulate what Paramount and Walmart did, and what Hulu and Spotify have been doing for a while, and what Roku and DoorDash are doing, and what Roku and Shopify are doing, and what Amazon and TikTok and Instagram are doing together. So I think you're going to see a tremendous number of new ways of innovating companies through partnerships or through mergers and acquisitions. My great fear for media would be that TV keeps buying TV, which will only create a single voice in television at some point, that, Spotify doesn't find a good home to land in, because I don't think that they can take on Apple, Amazon, and Google by themselves. Anyway.
What about social media platforms then, Evan? I mean, it seems to be a really big year for TikTok. They seem to be just flying when it comes to not only subscribers, but watch time on TikTok. And as you mentioned earlier on, they're now starting to allow longer videos. I think you said 15 minutes earlier on. So it's starting to become, perhaps more of a competitor to YouTube than it certainly was like a year ago. So, huge year for them. How do you see things panning out for them in 2024?
Well, it's interesting because they're doing a stock buyback right now at a lower valuation, or about the same valuation that it did a year ago, but lower than they had been. And I think that's a signal that they think they're going to have issues with the US government and probably European governments over a long time. I think you have to take their word for it. So I do think that's going to cap certain elements of that company. The talent that they'll be able to attract, I don't hear it's a wonderful place to work. And so I think part of that is the kind of weird ownership structure that they currently have. I think it creates a bit of an ambiguity depending on who's president of the United States and who's running the EU, frankly.
Yeah.
And I don't think ambiguity is not great typically for business. Yeah, they're big, but they're still 6 or 7% compared to Google's, 30%, and Meta's 20 some odd percent, and Amazon's growing double-digit percentage. And I do think short form video, I think that a 9:16 mobile first video is going to be sold at a depreciated CPM or cost per action than is connected television. I think that this is seen as a more premium environment, more content safe environment. And crucially, it's a higher attention span environment. Yes, they're staying for long times here, but how am I also watching television? What else am I doing? There's a reason why TikTok, I wrote a piece on this last week. There's a reason why TikTok wants to become YouTube now.
Okay. And what's that?
More advertising dollars. They feel like they're reaching their cap as far as ad dollars and revenues will go, that it's going to be hard for them to expand in the US through sale, because I think they're going to have a hard time finding a buyer, given the political environment here. And so right now, when you look at what they're up to, where they're putting most of their resources, it's into shopping to take on Amazon.
Yeah.
And it's into horizontal and long form video. They're putting all their user creator funds into 15-minute videos. To me, that means they're pivoting or they're adding. They're also emulating data and experiences that they're having on Douyin, which is their Chinese version of TikTok.
How about Mr. Beast then? Now, Mr. Beast has made headlines this year and made some extraordinary clips, and I think he seems to break records every sort of couple of months with the number of views and the speed of views that he's been having on YouTube. Do you think the creator economy is set to move ahead again in 2024? It's had a remarkable year in terms of the number of brands that are working with creators and just the success of a whole load of new generation of creators. Do you expect the same to be of 2024, only more so?
I think there's this misperception around what the creator economy is. So first of all, what we call the creator economy, or as Goldman Sachs defines it, they size as $250 billion business this year, growing to $500 billion business by the end of this decade.
Yeah.
So it's enormous. It's $250 billion, right? And it's much, it includes things like podcasts. It includes things like, NFTs, which are a passing fad, but Substack newsletters and direct-to-brand deals and Patreon subscriptions and any number, and by the way, live tickets as well. And I think creator is I think what we used to think as, UGC, right?
Yeah.
But that's not what it is. Everybody who's truly a creator, who makes a living as a creator, is a professional content creator. So that is seen as professional content by the audiences. And this is really key, definitely by the advertisers. Most advertisers now see creator-led and Hollywood-led or professionally led content as the same thing. And audiences do as well. And the money is moving back and forth between them very easily. So Mr. Beast is worth $1.5 billion because he sells shit, but he does it in a premium, horizontal, on YouTube, on connected televisions mostly, environment, a premium environment. Jake Paul, Logan, all the Pauls, all the folks who are really doing it well are existing in both in the corporate economy. So Charli D'Amelio has shows on Hulu and on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
But she's her own ecosystem, and her relationship with her audience is the engine of commerce in her enterprise. That's a creator-led business, right? Mr. Beast is a creator-led business. The Paul brothers each make, together make almost $100 million a year through all their products, right? That's a creator. But then go into the fashion pages of YouTube and look at all the product lines that are being sold. That's all extensions of the creator economy. So I see it as a community-led economy, and I also don't think it's exclusive to creators. I think brands can live there. It means going direct to a community, offering them value, usually content-based or intellectual property-based. But crucially, these are cults. Sometimes they're huge, sometimes they're small, and you charge in different ways. But half of the value in the media ecosystem over the next 25 years is going to come from some combination of the community economy. Now, think about the companies that I include in there. Twitch is a community economy platform. TikTok is a community economy platform. Instagram is a community economy platform. Is it owned by the community? It is not. Does the community use it to distribute its content and make a living? 100%. And that's where the two sides will intersect, corporate and creator. But the value that's generated by the creator and community economy is going to be, I think, on equal footing to that in most other media. I think there's going to be a decent amount of M&A next year. There's any number of different ways. There are ways that are interesting to me, and then there'll be ways that are interesting to people who work inside these enterprises. I mean, I think gaming is ripe for more continued consolidation now that Activision is at Microsoft. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Sony, make some acquisitions there. Nintendo doesn't really buy stuff all that much, but who knows? And then you have these other, Tencent, and some other players out there who I think might consider making consolidation happen. I think crucially, though, you have the case that Google lost against Epic this year, and that's going to continue into next year. And so I do think what's demonstrated there is if you can have leverage in the marketplace, you can get things done. So I think you'll see some mergers in gaming. I think you'll see some mergers and acquisitions in video and in television. I think Warner Brothers Discovery is being priced for sale. I think Paramount is in negotiations for that right now. I think Fox, who knows? I mean, obviously it's a family-run business, but Rupert is out of it. I can't imagine Lachlan wants to deal with all these strikes and all this other bullshit. So look for that to be available and out there. I think, as I've said before, I can't see, given the interesting year that Spotify had, in particular, really good subscriber and user growth. They actually had their first profitable quarter in forever. 30 days after they announced their first profitable quarter in forever, they let go of 1,500 more employees, their third layoff this year. That's 17%, but combined, we're talking about more than 20% of their workforce in the past year. And this is after a couple of really, really interestingly placed investments in podcasting, investing more into the podcasting ecosystem than the podcasting ecosystem ever puts back out. And then the CFO leaves and 1,500 layoffs. And perhaps there won't be more next year, but that feels like a company that belongs as part of a larger entity of offerings. The way YouTube Music is, the way Amazon Music is, the way Apple, all the other major competitors in the space are part of a suite of products that do not ask the audio business to be enormously profitable unto itself.
Yeah.
Wonder why that is. Maybe it's because it's not a profitable business.
Yeah.
And I think Spotify's 17 years in existence. Go back and look at the whole thing. It's a great story from a growth perspective, from a user-based and revenue-based growth perspective. But as a profitable, sustainable venture unto itself, I don't know. Anyway, I think they're ripe for acquisition next year. I think that's something that gets kicked around. Certainly, I would look to see them partner with people in interesting ways to grow their ad business faster than it's growing and find a way to reduce costs. I don't know how they do that.
And what about you, Evan, for 2024? What's on the horizon for you? What's the big things that you're going to be focusing on? Are you going to be traveling as much as you did this year?
Yeah, I'm going to CES in Vegas in early January. So look me up if you're going to be there. I'm then doing a bunch of stuff in New York. I'm going to London to speak again to the Royal Television Society because once was not enough. I did it in September, and they invited me back for a panel and a keynote speech of some sorts. So that'll be fun.
You're looking for that knighthood.
I don't think Jews from New York can get a knighthood. In March, I have 2 events at South by Southwest, one with Future Media Hubs and another with some friends doing an AI panel, interestingly enough. And then in May, I'm hosting a conference called Streaming Media NYC right here in New York City. And it's at the Intercontinental Hotel. It's going to be very cool. So I got a lot of plans coming up for next year. But between now and then, next week, I'm going to drop a list of predictions for 2024 on my newsletter, Media War and Peace. And then I'm going to get some rest, watch some movies, enjoy the holidays with my family, and get ready for 2024.
All right. Very cool. Well, we'll put a link in the episode description to Media War and Peace so you can subscribe to that and have a look at Evan's predictions next week. Listen, thanks for joining us, Evan. It's been great to speak to you as ever. Always great to hear your insights and your viewpoints. Some fascinating stuff in there. I'm sure our audience will really enjoy that. And we'll see you on the road, I'm sure. I'm hoping to get to South by Southwest myself, so maybe I'll catch you there. But
yeah, let us know.
Yeah, great to speak to you. Thanks a lot. Have a great holiday season. Get your feet up. Enjoy your time with your family, and we'll see you bright and fresh in 2024 in London.
You too.
Well, that's it for this week's show, and indeed for TellyCast in 2023. Thanks so much for sticking with us across 40 episodes this year. Whether you're listening to the show or coming to our events, I really appreciate your support. And thanks also to our commercial partners and sponsors this year. We've got a really big year ahead for the show, so we're hoping to work with even more partners in 2024 as we grow and continue our mission to bring something new and different to to the content industry community through our media and events. Our next podcast show will be out on 18th of January. The big change in 2024 is that we'll be shooting and recording video as well as audio in our new studio in central London, courtesy of our friends at the brilliant Spirit Studios. We'll be posting the show in all its HD glory on YouTube, and you'll hopefully see short-form clips on our social channels too. If you don't already, please follow us on our socials. You'll find all the links in the episode description. And next year, we'll be launching new events like the Brand-Funded Entertainment Summit and others. Plus, of course, we'll see the return of the Digital Content Forum in November. This week's TellyCast was edited by Ian Chambers and recorded in London. Until next year, I hope you have a really peaceful Christmas. And here's to a prosperous new year to everybody. We'll see you in 2024. And of course, stay safe.